all year long we've done this, and I don't think, Greg, you have been the one to yell McFarland yet.
Okay.
So can you do that for me one time?
Yes. McFarland.
Oh, come on. Put a little something behind it. Let's go.
McFarland.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
good morning.
Listen, we haven't spoken to you since the Bloom era came to an abrupt end. Mm-hmm. What are you hearing about who will be running the show next season?
A lot of buzz about Mike Hazen. Mike Hazen, of course, the president of baseball operations with the Arizona Diamondbacks, former GM of the Red Sox. But I do think that is a long shot still, because Mike Hazen, his family's embedded in Arizona. They've got a good thing going there. Last time they went through this, he got a contract extension out of it because of the Red Sox interest. So I think that he would have been a great choice, and I think that he's a guy that the fan base would actually get excited about. But man, I don't really see it happening right now because of all the things that I just said. But there's some other people out there, some other people who have actually done the job before, which I think has to be a prerequisite. You have to have made trades. You have to have signed free agents. You have to have gone through this time around if you're going to get this job.
So, and that was, in your mind, that ended up being the downfall when it came to Heim, just not enough experience.
Yeah, Heim did a lot of good things, as we talked about here a bunch of times, but I think the biggest thing, and the Red Sox can push back on this, but it was just a fact, is that there was this narrative throughout baseball that you had to win the trade by 70% instead of 51%. Mm-hmm. And that became an issue, obviously, at the trade deadlines plural. And I think ultimately, whether it was signing free agency, not getting uncomfortable enough to actually get guys like Zach Eflin done, then, that was a sort of his downfall. And then they looked at it this way. Not only do you have the creeping in apathy of the fan base, not only do you have the last place finishes, but you have an offseason coming up here where you're going to have to make significant moves. And the kind of moves that you might have to make maybe don't lean into what Heim had done in the past.
Not to mention that you had the opportunity to unload the Chris Sale salary, and you couldn't make that happen.
Yeah, that was so. I had heard about that shortly before the news about Heim, and then when the Heim day happened, sort of dug in a little bit deeper on it, and that was to let people know what happened there. You had a deal. You had an offer from the Rangers after Sale had broken his hand. So he was on the injured list heading into the 2022 trade deadline. And the Rangers said, well, hey, we'll trade for Chris Sale. We want to trade for Chris Sale. We'll take on his whole contract.
The whole thing.
The
whole entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's come out, or I think the Globe said all but $14 million. I'm told the whole thing. And so that was 2.5 years, about $55 million. And, maybe a couple players. It's sort of like, I think that Jones said this, it's sort of like the Beckett, Crawford, Adrian Gonzalez deal. The money is the thing here, right? So they say, no, we want better players than you're offering, so we're not going to do the deal. So the deal was never done. It obviously, to me, it was just sort of painted the picture of the reluctance to pull off those sort of deals, which ended up, I think, coming back to bite him. And there's other examples. There's examples of him making good trades, too. But that one felt like it had to be surfaced.
But my question, Rob, is why wouldn't Chaim Bloom, who was hired to reduce costs, not be over the moon in getting rid of Sale, whose deal is an albatross around the organization?
It's a good question, and when I first heard it, my first words were the whole thing, the whole contract, and so I think that if you go back to that time, if you want to paint the whole picture, well, he was coming back from Tommy John. You thought his elbow was going to be okay. This was a broken finger. You thought that was going to be okay. And then say maybe they felt like they needed to have some semblance of starting pitchers going forward. They were looking at the optimistic view of Chris Sale. But overall, I mean, I'm giving the devil's advocate of this, but still, for $55 million, that's a lot of stuff that you can invest in, and including guys that you probably have a little bit more certainty of.
Bradford, going back to the filling of Heim's role, so if you say that you need somebody who's done this job before, does that mean in your mind Alex Cora will not make that part of his future?
No, I think Alex Cora wants to do it at some point in his life, but I just don't think it's going to happen right now. And if maybe it becomes something where you have somebody who comes in who's an up-and-comer, like a Brandon Gomes, right? A Brandon Gomes is a guy from Fall River. He's the GM of the Dodgers, and a lot of people are talking about him. But, he has Andrew Friedman is above him. I don't know if they would be willing to say, hey, go get him. You're the president of baseball operation. You're the be-all, end-all. With Alex Cora, if you say you went down that road, I think you still would have to bring in somebody else who has done that before, because I think that's what we're talking about. We have to have we're going to be faced with some very, very difficult situations in terms of trading prospects, in terms of spending money. And I'll tell you a name to keep an eye on, which it's been come out that her contract is up after the end of the year, is Kim Ng, who is the GM for the Miami Marlins. I mean, you look at some of the trades that she's made since she's been there. They've been difficult trades, but they've been good trades. She's made some tough decisions there. And I just think that if you said tomorrow that she was going to be the person that they identified, I would have no problem with that at all.
I hate it more than anything to validate any of Wiggy's leads. However, are you hearing, I believe it was Gammons who reported over the weekend that Shohei would indeed consider the Red Sox. Are you hearing that same thing?
No.
Okay.
Well, you need to be hearing it, because when Peter Gammon speaks, you should be listening, Bradford.
I'm a Hall of Famer. I always listen when Peter speaks.
Don't sound like you are.
No, well, okay. I know that it'll be much easier for Shohei to walk down the street and get his New Balances from Jim Davis. But let's be real here. Like the Shohei, I mean, all of this can be leveraged from here on in. We might hear the Red Sox a bunch. Well, all I know is this. Shohei Ohtani, in the first time around, didn't even take a meeting with the Red Sox. I think he still prefers, no matter what is said, he still prefers to be on the West Coast. He obviously prefers to win. And yeah, it's great that he has a relationship with New Balance. New Balance is an awesome company. Jim Davis is an awesome guy. But it's still, at the same time, I don't think the relationship with his sponsor is going to draw him to Boston just because that's where the behemoth of a building stands.
Well, to me, it has nothing to do with New Balance. To me, it's simple. I love when you have a John Henry who is irrational and who is doing things because he is now frustrated or he's starting to hear the whispers. And I believe, and Lou Merlone talked about this, that you're going to see the Red Sox and John Henry go back to doing what he did before, and that's opening up a checkbook and giving somebody a hefty payday, and that being Shohei.
Well, okay, so
also it's not whispers; it's literally people yelling.
John, hey Raffy, hey anybody.
Sorry, Brad.
I think that you could be irrationally rational, and in that way, I agree with you. This is what it comes back to. Why I think they wanted to go in a different direction, because they know this is coming. Not only because you need good players, but because you need to push back apathy. You need to get excitement back. You can't have the Dodgers fans marching down the street overcoming people are just happy to be there on $9 ticket night. You can't have that. But with Ohtani is one thing. The guy that they're going to be irrationally rational about is Yamamoto. This guy who is going to cost a crap load of money, but is 25 years old, and it is exactly what the Red Sox need. So I appreciate you, Wiggy. I respect you. I think your Brockton football team is going to do great things this year. But Yamamoto is the guy you should focus on and not Ohtani.
All right, Bradford, will you be making the season-ending trip to Baltimore with the Red Sox?
I will. Hopefully, we have a big baseballs and boring party, but it's
I-
always a party being with you guys. I appreciate it.
I was invited to go, so I may. Maybe you and I can break some bread down there. And
Can I advertise that you will attend our event? Let's go.
Of course, I will. I would love
All right.
Is it a weekend?
Huh?
Is it a weekend
Yeah,
trip?
it's
Yes.
a weekend. Yeah, it's a weekend
Wow,
trip.
I wanna go.
I will not be flexing anytime. But
Some crab cakes.
I was. Yeah,
I would like to go.
Yeah, it should be.
Love Baltimore.
Be good. I
be
like
too
Rob
low
and
on the
I.
poll.
Rob and I never spend any time together, and I feel like it would be good for us.
It's like a new season of The Wire.
Yeah.
Can someone whistle like Omar? Let's go.
All right, Bradford. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right. See y'all.
All right. That is Rob Bradford.